Today in Albany, a school district faces a tough decision amid serious allegations. Hi, I'm Leah.
And I'm Garrett. Welcome to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett, reporting from Albany, New York. All right, let's set the stage for this one. First up, assistant coach fired amid child rape charges in Amsterdam. The Greater Amsterdam School District, which serves the city of Amsterdam in Montgomery County, voted to fire assistant coach Jared T. Baldazin after he was charged with third-degree rape and a criminal sexual act. These charges, which are allegations and not convictions, relate to incidents prosecutors say happened in the spring of 2024. Here's the quick timeline. Spring 2024, alleged incidents. March 2026, he was charged with the felony offenses. He had been placed on administrative leave, meaning temporarily taken off duty with pay while things were investigated. In March 2026, the Amsterdam School Board voted to terminate his employment. Officials also noted he previously worked at Broadalbin Perth Central School District, a neighboring district, and at the time of his arrest, he was employed by the New York State Thruway Authority, which runs the toll road. One surprising detail, he was released on his own recognizance, which means no bail, and he promises to return for court. This case puts a spotlight on student safety and how districts handle allegations, and it raises questions about what kinds of background checks and ongoing monitoring are in place for school employees and coaches. To be crystal clear, he is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court.
That hits different. When you're talking about a student and someone in a position of trust, the community feels that in their bones. Background checks are a baseline, but real talk, ongoing checks and strong reporting systems are essential so concerns don't fall through the cracks. If you're a parent in Amsterdam or Broadalbin Perth, you're probably asking why it took until 2026 for a firing when the alleged conduct was in 2024. I get that urgency. Protecting students has to be the number one priority. Always. One more thing. If anyone in the school community sees something that feels off, even if you're not sure, report it. Systems only work if people feel safe using them. Okay, let's move on. Next up, concert chaos. A Troy man was arrested for allegedly assaulting a deputy at Cloverfest, the hip-hop concert at MVP Arena in downtown Albany. According to the Albany County Sheriff's Office, a 21-year-old was reportedly acting irrationally. Security tried to remove him, deputies stepped in, and he allegedly punched a sergeant. A sergeant was injured and treated at a local hospital. Charges include second-degree assault, resisting arrest, and obstructing governmental administration, which basically means interfering with the work of law enforcement. He was scheduled for arraignment in Albany City Court. Sheriff Craig Apple said many attendees were intoxicated, which tracks with the challenge here. Managing intoxicated crowds is tough. De-escalation takes time and bodies, and the exact number of deputies involved at the scene isn't fully clear yet.
Yeah, that checks out. Big shows pack a lot of energy, but safety has to be tight. Event security teams and law enforcement have rotating details at MVP Arena, typically 3 or 4 deputies on shift. But when a situation escalates fast, those numbers can feel thin. I'd love to see venues and promoters invest even more in crowd flow planning, earlier intervention points, and clearer alcohol service cutoffs. Small tweaks can prevent a shove from turning into a hospital trip. Let's switch it up. Next up, legacy of redlining and how historical maps still shape school zones in Schenectady. Redlining, just to define it, was a discriminatory mapping system from the 1930s that labeled neighborhoods, often where Black and immigrant families lived, as risky for investment. Banks and governments then denied loans and resources in those areas. A new report says today's school attendance zones in Schenectady still mirror those old lines, effectively steering kids from historically underfunded neighborhoods into underperforming schools. The report pushes for more equitable zoning and wider open enrollment, which means families can choose a school outside their default neighborhood, and more magnet schools, which are specialized programs that draw students citywide. Albany started open enrollment back in the 1990s, and while it's not a cure-all, it helped loosen the lock between address and opportunity. One detail that stood out: in Schenectady, some boundaries reportedly cut streets mid-block in ways that echo those 1930s maps. That's a strong signal of how deeply the past can anchor the present.
That one gave me chills. Kids are still paying the bill for decisions made almost a century ago. Open enrollment and magnets are solid steps, but if the baseline schools in historically redlined neighborhoods remain under-resourced, families still face a hard choice. I want to see real investment follow the data: additional staffing, tutoring, and facilities upgrades where the need is highest. Why keep boundaries that recreate inequity when we can redraw them with student success in mind? All right, on to the next. Hudson River fish ban 50 years later. Is it effective? Quick history. PCBs, or polychlorinated biphenyls, are industrial chemicals that persist in the environment for decades. Think persistent chemicals that build up in fish. General Electric used PCBs at plants upriver, and by 1975, New York issued an advisory against eating most Hudson River fish. Parts of the river were designated a Superfund site in 1983. The EPA ordered GE to dredge about 40 miles of the river. That dredging wrapped in 2015. But advisories remain because PCB levels in fish are still a concern, and surveys show many people, especially immigrant anglers who may not see or read the warning signs, still eat their catch at higher rates than advised. Environmental groups argue advisories put the burden on the public instead of finishing the cleanup. One sobering projection from an EPA report suggested fish might not be safe to eat weekly until around 2072 or later. That's multiple generations from now. A small historical note that says a lot. Thomas Edison, who helped found General Electric, loved fishing the Hudson in the early 1900s. Decades later, the river was polluted enough that folks like musician Pete Seeger called it "my dirty stream." We've made progress, but clearly not enough for dinner plate safety yet.
I'm all about that perspective. If advisories are the main tool, the messaging has to meet people where they are. Multilingual, eye-level signs at common fishing spots, outreach through community groups, and simple visuals showing which fish and how often. And on the cleanup front, the debate over responsibility keeps dragging. While the data matures from the last EPA review, we shouldn't act like the job's done. More targeted sediment work and habitat restoration could speed up the clock, so people don't have to choose between tradition and health. Let's shift over to the next. Northampton considers halting a battery storage project amid public concerns. Northampton is a town near Great Sacandaga Lake, a large reservoir at the edge of the Adirondacks. The town is weighing a 1-year moratorium, which is basically a temporary pause on a utility-scale battery energy storage system. The project is by Carson Power, a private energy developer, and it actually received approval from the Adirondack Park Agency, the state agency overseeing development within the park. Supporters say these big battery systems store excess electricity when demand is low and release it during peak hours, which helps a greener grid. Opponents, many of them local residents, worry about safety, especially lithium-ion fires, which are tricky and often can't be put out with water. There were incidents in places like Lyme and Warwick that left lasting impressions. The town plans a public hearing on the moratorium, so you have this tension: statewide climate goals on one side and local safety and siting concerns on the other.
Let's get to the heart of it. People want clean energy and they want to sleep at night. Both can be true. If a project moves forward, I want transparent emergency plans, specialized training and equipment for local volunteer firefighters, regular safety drills, and clear setback rules, which just means how far the facility must be from homes or the lake. The community needs a real seat at the table, not just a comment period. Why not form a local safety advisory group that tracks performance data and oversees drills in plain sight of residents? Thanks for listening to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett from Albany, New York.
Take care and join us again tomorrow for more local news.